be even in second grade. So especially for the level 4, we're not looking at a level 2. Remember, when we get to a level 4, that's that full standard. The whole standard is taught through the level 4. So once I'm there, I should see everything in that standard. And that is a huge missing piece. It's not, they don't go up high enough, it's not gonna get them where they need to be. Anything else?
It's missing work form?
Yes, exactly. So we've got expanded form, standard form, but the full standard, the NSO 1-1, level 4, includes word form. Anything about the execution of the lesson?
No rules assigned within the group.
Yeah, just a group of 4, 1 or 2 kids are always going to just sit back and let somebody else do the work. This would be a good opportunity maybe for like numbered heads or something where they each, have to have some accountability. This place value chart, that can be very helpful to help differentiate if some students have that, if they need it, if they still need help kind of directing their place value, just make sure they know how to use it. Yes.
Teachers only calling on the students that have their hands raised.
There you go. We need to, and that's another thing that numbered heads would take care of, because if you say number 3, whoever the number 3 is responsible for it.
No opt-out takes care of that too.
Yep, absolutely. So this was just a quick thing to take a look at how something that any one of us could pull real quickly when we're Googling or teachers pay teachers might not be as aligned as we'd hope. So when you're looking for resources, just look through that scope.
Gina, I'll do the instructional guide and then would you want to do that?
Absolutely. So that being said, we want to make sure that we take a closer look at the instructional guide and what it offers, because there have been some additions which are exciting and have been well received, and I think that it's helpful for teachers and administrators. So what we did was, this is an 8-day module, so we have 7 days of instruction. We broke it down to what your goal should be for each day, down to the ALD. So day 1, you're going to do NSO 1-1 level 3, NSO 1-2 level 2. Both of those should be able to be accomplished in day 1. And the aligned exemplar items, that means if you take a look at your exemplar, numbers 2 and 3, by the end of the class period, your kids should be able to do. That doesn't mean use exemplar items 2 and 3 in your instruction and give it to them, but it means that if you were going to have like an exit ticket or something, Gina had a great idea of having, the ALD questions for 2 and 3, because they always have one that looks just like it. Use those for an exit ticket, because then that gives you a quick, yes, they've got it, or no, they don't. So when admin is coming in, or when you're looking at your whole kind of scope and sequence here, this is going to tell you each day what you need to focus on and what your goal is. Does that make sense? Anything else? Within the instructional guide, I wanted to take a quick look at the benchmarks and then we can. So within this module, benchmark 1 is NSO 1-1, and I know Corey had said that you guys had started previously, that I think that this is kind of what you've focused on so far, which is writing numbers from 0 to 10,000 using standard, expanded, and word form. So they need to be able to do all 3. The level 5 is to kind of do them interchangeably. And that does include numbers up to 10,000. That doesn't mean the 10,000's place. So the highest number they will see is 10,000. Got it? That one we've kind of explored, you guys have done, it's not that different. The one that is a little different, that's new and can be a little bit more challenging, is benchmark 2-2.
Absolutely. So for this benchmark, students are going to compose and decompose 4-digit numbers in multiple ways using thousands, hundreds, tens, and ones, and they're going to demonstrate these different ways. So we call this bundling, and it's something that's a challenge. We've done it in 4th grade, but it's new to you guys in 3rd grade. So we're gonna start with a little example, and we're gonna use the number 34. So with your base 10 blocks that are on your desk, can you please model the number 34?
Who else needs base 10 block? Over there?
I'm just a sub.
Oh, okay, then you probably don't.
Unless you wanna play with the manipulatives. Now 34 is a number that every kid, that you probably have enough manipulatives for every kid to be able to model 34 on their own. When we get to bigger numbers, of course the kids are gonna need to work in groups because we just don't have the capacity to model those numbers. And also, those numbers become really large and are gonna take up a lot of space in your classroom. So this is an easy one. Hey, how did you model 34? If we're talking about place value, what two places are modeled on your desk? Tens and ones, ones and tens. Yes, how many tens do you have?
3.
3. How many ones do you have? 4.
Nope.
Can you model 34 another way?
Yes.
Okay, show me another model on your desk with 34. As you're doing that on the board, this is linked in the IG. It's a decomposition chart. So it'll kind of just give you some guidance. I might not necessarily show the kids this on day one. I'm gonna let them kind of explore, but they can do ones only and then tens and ones. Obviously ones only, they're gonna only have one example. But then when we get tens and ones, hundreds and ones, kind of guiding them through that way.
And the reason we're starting with the number you guys identified before, that, you know, numbers in the tens place are below the standard. But when we're modeling and getting them to understand what bundling means, we need to get a number that's more attainable for them to understand. And again, this is gonna be the hardest year with this, because next year you'll have second graders coming to you that have already done it with tens. But this year, this is the first time they're seeing it. So we need to go a little bit deeper for them to build understanding by building the numbers.
Also, if I was doing this right now in my classroom, I would have chart paper for the kids and have them write the number 34 in the middle and then build around that number and also draw it. Because obviously on the exemplar, they're not going to use the manipulatives. They're going to have to be able to transfer that to drawings to represent it that way as well. So just kind of getting those skills all at once. And then when they're done, they have a product. Because obviously the manipulatives can't stay, but that chart paper can. And then you have an artifact of the benchmark that you can use in your classroom. Absolutely, perfect. So does anybody else want to share another way they made 34? So we could do 3 tens and 4 ones with that one.
3 tens. So this was one way.
Okay, go ahead.
2 tens and 14 ones.
Why do you have 14 ones now?
Broke the stick down.
Ah, so you took a 10.
And fumbled it.
You decomposed it, right? You broke it into smaller pieces in order to move it over to the next place value. Anybody else have another way?
All ones.
All ones. So how many ones did you have?
34.
34.
Almost gave you the answer.
110 and 24 ones.
So in a perfect scenario, your students would maybe start to see a pattern here. What's changing? As I lose a 10, my ones become 10 more. Talking them through that decomposition because we want them to see patterns through this as well. Because once they see that, they can kind of catch on to that quickly. So I would say to them, do you notice anything? How these numbers are changing when I look across? Now it might not be perfect because we might not do it in this perfect order like we did. So maybe kind of leading them through to that.
It can also be beneficial to try and do the reverse where you're trying to get them to kind of compose,
Mhm.
where you say, okay, 110 and 24 ones. How would I know that this is this number? If I'm presented with an assessment item, or if I'm presented with an item where I say, I have 110 and 24 ones, what's a good way for me to recognize that that's actually 34? and they have the ability to explore with their blocks there. So that can make more sense. And that's where they're gonna do the reverse, hopefully do the reverse of what you just did and say, well, each 10 I bundle together and I'm, each 10 ones I bundle together and make 1 10.
And for the most part, like you guys did, students are going to start by modeling this as 3 10s and 4 1s. So just through the beginning of that, connecting it back to expanded form, so you're connecting it with NSO 1 1, and they're going together. They just kind of work nicely together in that way when you first build that initial model. Okay. So do we want to
Do 100?
Okay.
Okay, so again, this one was to get the kids familiar with the process. Is there a way to erase the whole thing? This one? Okay. But as far as getting on grade level, and you're not gonna wanna spend a whole day doing that with a 2-digit number. But we're getting them familiar with the process, getting them to the point where they understand the chart. Are we doing hundreds? So I do have 2 charts on this, and it is on the instructional guide. It's right here, the decomposition chart under day 5. So there is one for the thousands, and this again, it would be tough to have the kids, you're not gonna want them counting thousands out by ones by any means.
Yeah, so having them do it with a number like 34 and then saying, okay, now I have a number that's 362. Is it reasonable for me to sit here and count out that many ones? Probably not, but can we say that that is 362 ones? Yes.
And so this, on the left, it kind of is the guiding, where to start. Like Gina said, for the activity for the first time, you probably don't want that. You want them just exploring, but this gives them the kind of skeleton of what they're looking for. So I've got the hundreds down on here.
Okay, so we'll just pick a number. Anybody want to pick a number in the hundreds?
272.
Thank you.
Oh, there's a little arrow at the very bottom. Oh,
Yes.
Alright, 272. If you guys could maybe jot down the different ways that you're able to break it down, then we can come together in a couple minutes and come up with all the different ways that you.
Even if you want to partner up and kind of do it together. Maybe one person can record, and one person can model. Stage and stuff. That's right.
You will have kids that need that chart, but you could have like a program chart that they can group under the numbers, or like as independent, they can do exactly what you're. Because you have stuff.
So it's just like common nature now.
Well, we have the numbers go, or you can do the greatest chart that has them broken up, so every first, says how many. What is that one?
Yeah.
What do you just like, put it like plastic food, so they can write it too, if they need to. So just as an idea, because it's exactly what you're talking about.
It's one to recognize which ones are limited, like not every number is gonna have every single possibility, so that's a good discussion.
Yeah, and that is totally one that I would have that decision with the kids.
Well, like which ones of these could we cross out even in the beginning that are not gonna be possible?
So if we also.
They're never gonna get things like that.
Yeah.
And you have to have ones,
Yeah.
and you have to have tens.
Well,
This
you
one
can,
you
you can have hundreds and ones.
So we could do
272
Oh, okay.
But the
They
ones
didn't
have
see
to
that.
be, but the ones have to be good. And that's why this is, something like this is beneficial, cause the kids will come up with things
I
that
saw
you're
you're
like,
better
oh,
than I
yeah.
am, because
Mm-hmm.
I have an old brain.
How do we get
I was hoping that.
piece of paper?
It's a link
It's-
on the.
It's a link in the
I can show you.
IP.
I'll show you.
Thank you. I'm like very visual.
But you have to I don't know, maybe there's a better way, but
Gina's gonna show you.
I do it all the time.
I'm of the smart board as well,
Yeah, cause I
so
can
I'm
just
like-
print this out right now.
Alright, let's take a look at some of your answers.
Just print it out for class before the math or no? We've got,
I
here, we've
wouldn't
got
say yes.
27 tens, 2 ones.
But
So
tomorrow.
tens and ones, 27 tens, 2 ones. Now, what Chelsea pointed out in the beginning was also a very important discussion. Is there one of these that we should just cross out completely because it's not gonna be possible with this number?
Hundreds and tens.
Hundreds and tens, because
Oh, yeah.
it would have to be a decimal if we were talking tens and that would not be third grade. So it's gonna have to include ones. That's a good discussion as to why. Why does it have to include ones? Something, it's the smallest unit. Any other? What's one that you came up with?
For ones only, 271 ones.
I like when Rebecca's 272 ones.
Yeah, 200. Then we have 100, 100, 17 tens, and 2 ones. That would be on the bottom.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
17 tens.
Yeah.
That might be one that you'd want your kids that didn't build it to build,
Mm-hmm.
to see, because that's gonna be one that's gonna be like, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
How are you, that's a cool decomposition.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one example on each, there could be several.
Right.
Do you all have something on your paper that's not up here probably? There's more, and then if you were to communicate between groups, you would probably have one that someone else doesn't have as well. So we could really fill this chart with the exception of, I think one
Right.
is just the
Yeah.
ones.
Do that one, we're done.
Yeah.
It's the one and only.
Right.
So if you're reaching the full benchmark, you are working in the thousands and your kids come with 1,000 cube. So it's hard to work with this. So I don't know if some of you noticed when you got your, can I borrow your hundreds real quick? When you got your hundreds, they were bundled. This is just how I make 1,000, and then it makes decomposition really easy because they take the rubber band off and now they have hundreds. So it's just a way for you to be able to make more thousands since you get more.
So I wanna take a quick look back at the instructional guide to show one more thing, and then we'll come back and talk about Thursday. One other thing, the scenario that I forgot to point out, I didn't have my notes on me, so shame on me, but was this is NSO 1-1 level 4. So if I'm looking in the instructional guide for NSO 1-1 level 4, that's the day 2. What else does day 2 have that was not included in that lesson?
Well,
It had
Word form?
No,
I'm confused.
I think we're further down.
I'm confused.
That's 1-1. No 1-2.
was it?
Yeah, further down.
No, I'm talking
Oh,
about,
that's
I'm
right.
sorry, the
Go back
scenario
up.
that I did, I'm going back to the
Oh,
beginning of the
okay.
class. So scenario, when I showed you this worksheet that they did and we said it was missing, the numbers weren't high enough and all of that stuff. It's NSO 1-1 level 4, that's what's on their common board. So I'm looking in the instructional guide for NSO 1 level 4, that's here, so that's day 2. So if you're looking just at day 2, what else was missing from that lesson? Base 10 blocks. So we've included where, we would love to see manipulatives in lots of places, but particularly the first couple days of a module, we try and include it. But we've included how this needs to be taught and if manipulatives need to be included. So day 1 and day 2 might be further down the
Mhm, yeah, I think it is.
We
Yes,
would want-
day 4.
Day 4, we would wanna see base 10 blocks, and that's how you teach that lesson. So this instructional guide is a good way of knowing, when I need to be able to do that.
And also where it says the level that you'll be working on and then the aligned exemplar items. Also, if we have a note, like as we're building and going through these exemplars that we say like, oh, this is how I would teach it, I'll sometimes stick a note in there too. Like just try to give you a little bit more information. Or even if there's an Envision lesson, I know we have the aligned Envision lessons down at the bottom, but sometimes Envision does a weird thing like this one, where it does 6-1, 6-2, and 6-5. I put 6-5 here just so you know that matches that. Even though it's like way, because then they put rounding and stuff in between there, and it was kind of weird, so I was like, I'm gonna call that to attention twice, just so.
So this
You know it's
would not be a topic from Envision that you can go to lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3, lesson 4. There is alignment for 6-5 on day 7. Or
And you can
6-1
use
and
6-1 and 6-2.
So they can be put in where they fit. But again, what we're looking at is on these days and this will be on every instructional guide that you have. So when you are planning out your module, you wanna make sure that if it's day 3 of the module, this is your goal for day 3. That's what you're working on. With the exception of level 5. Let's understand that we know not all of our students are gonna get to a level 5. So if day 3 might be an extension of day 2, practicing a little bit more of day 2, and then bringing my level 5 students to level 5, maybe in a small group and pulling them. It doesn't have to be a whole group lesson.
And then benchmarks like this, where the level 5 is just the 3 things that they've already learned, using them interchangeably, you might find success with a lot of your students with that one. So you might see it as a day. And then sometimes you'll see a practice day that'll say, hit the level 5 on that day, where other students are still practicing parts of the benchmark that they haven't mastered yet. But I'm taking my level 5 kids to that level.
So somewhere in the room, or at some point in the lesson, we'd like to see a level 5 or students brought to a level 5. But it might just be a good day to practice this, and this, what you've taught so far, and then bringing the kids that have that to that next level. But each day it is laid out, this is what your goal is. So this is where you're gonna take a look at, of course, you've already taken your exemplar and you've noted it up. This is where you can take a look then. Where does Envision fit? Does it fit? It might not fit, but where does, maybe there's 3 lessons, okay, I have 7 days, I might be able to fit a lesson here, a lesson here, a lesson here, I'm gonna have to supplement for these other days. That's where the ALDs and things can come in.
And you'll see a lot of days in this for the compose and decompose, because that's really challenging for kids, and the more that they can practice, the better for them.
So we are on day 5, right, for our lesson that's gonna be on Thursday, technically. So let's take a look at our goal. This is what we would expect to see on day 5. This is what your goal is for your students on day 5, is that they can compose 4-digit numbers in multiple ways and demonstrate each composition using objects, drawings, and expressions or equations. So they're gonna be able to build those numbers, to break apart those numbers, just like we just did, but up to 4 digits. So our aligned exemplar items are 4, 5, and 6. I'd like to take a quick look at what those items are, because that gives us a little bit more focus when we're planning that day's instruction, because we know the goal is by the end of it that they can answer 4, 5, and 6. Okay, this is the first one. So the lesson that we just did, if we did it into the thousands, which you will get there, right? And the conversation around it and the building, and when you gave me one that was different and I would say, okay, you guys build that and tell me how it works, would that
help them answer this question? Would that help prepare them, rather? Would that help prepare them to answer this question? So this is one where they're gonna only see it one way, so 3 are not gonna work. So this is an easier one because it's not like the select alls are tough.
Yeah.
They are.
This one, there are 3 that they know there are 3 that are not gonna work, so they can kind of cross it out. Another thing, if they're not to the point where they can just visualize, if they can draw a long, they can draw a dot, they can draw a square, things like that are gonna be helpful. All right.
Can I ask a quick
Yes.
question? Can we go back to number 4?
Mhm.
The only thing that, like personally I'm looking at that could mess them up
Right.
is the 4,000, thousands, 300, hundreds,
Mhm.
20,
They did, like
10s.
half of my kids.
Those
And then
questions on
if you
the
want-
Cause it looks
They
like
got-
the
yeah.
expanded.
They put expanded and the words in there, and so
Do you
as
have
soon
any
as it pointed it out, the kids were like, oh.
Yeah, absolutely. You have
Suggestions
models
for
on your
that?
desk. Go ahead and model 4,000 thousands for me real quick.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Exactly.
4,000 thousands.
thousands.
Yeah, exactly. What number?
This one's on the
So-
LD and I had my class write it out and I was like, wow, do you see this? It automatically took it over 3 more place values. Does this number have 7 or 8 place values? How many does it have? They're like 4. And I go, alright, we already crossed that one out. We know it's not right.
So one thing, like thinking like a kid, like
If I have 4,000, we all agree this is 4,000. That's
Mhm.
something that they can't. How many thousands do I have? 4. So you can model this is 4,000.
not
You can.
No, 4,000.
If I had 4,000 of those blocks, would that be the same number? Are they equal? Do they have the same value? Use that terminology to get them used to comparing those numbers. No, that is
Making them
absurd
the
to make it that way.
pictures, like you were saying, how you take this and then draw the pictures, I think
Yeah.
that's what will help. Because, I've got
Yeah.
like real high kids, so they always write everything in their heads.
Yes.
And so half of them got that wrong, because that's what they looked at, they were thinking expanded form, because they rushed.
Right.
So I think this will make a big difference.
So we're
And
practicing this one on the ALD
Yeah.
together,
Well, yeah,
so it's more like that ALD question could be instructional, but at least
I
they've
would-
gone through one like that with you.
I would
Okay.
have this ALD item as your exit ticket for Thursday's lesson.
Oh, it's gonna be.
So Thursday's lesson is, we're gonna be doing this, 4 and 5 really. And I would find those items on your ALD and call that your exit ticket for Thursday and have them figure it out. When they are bundling, it is a good idea to start with the smallest unit in case they need to kind of go over to the next one. So here, 2710s, I know that that's 270, so if I always have them draw the lines and fill in where they need to, and it's gonna become kind of an addition problem, but that way they can see kind of the bundling going on. So excellent point, that's definitely worth a conversation. We did expanded form, now we're doing, decomposition, is 4,000 thousands the same thing? And using a big number like that for them to see the magnitude can be helpful.
it's funny too to be like, oh, go ahead and draw 4,000.
Yeah.
They'll sit there and start trying.
Yeah, if you see someone drawing 4,000 thousands, please stop them. Okay, we're gonna need to read that. Nobody's got time for this. Okay, and 5.
That's where it starts getting harder.
Yeah, now that you've seen it and built it, you can see that this is gonna be a challenging problem. It's gonna take them a minute. Any ideas on how they can tackle? So your lesson will prepare them to decompose those numbers. But now they're getting the decomposed numbers and they need to compose them. So any idea how we can tackle that transition to prepare them to rebuild the number? What's that?
I was confused. What? Like,
So if we give them the decomposed number, like the choices A, B, C, D, E,
okay.
how can we teach them
Yes.
to take that more
Sorry.
So no, that's what we did was we split the number apart. That's decomposition, right? We split it apart into groups. We made these lists. Now you're given a list and you're asked for the number. How can we facilitate that transition?
draw,
What? you do the dashes, and we start like 4 ones, okay, that goes over 4. 10 tens, you can only keep the, I always say, you can only keep the number right there next to the 10. So that'd be 0, and they have to carry to 1. That's what we've been working on this week,
Okay,
like on the bottom one.
and
Probably not
hopefully,
writing, but-
hopefully when you spend a little bit more time decomposing the number, it clicks as to why. Because if you're just teaching them the procedure, there is no connection as to why they're doing it. They're just learning another procedure for another abstract concept. But when they have pulled the numbers apart, this could be a task in itself. Put something like that on the board and say, build it. What number, what in standard form, and using that language, what number in standard form would this be? Well, why? That's where you have that conversation where you taught your kids, I have 80 tens. If I always do the thing, but it's gonna end in the tens place. That's 80 tens, right? That's 800, and they're gonna see it. I would choose something a little smaller than 80.
Yes.
I do 20 tens. We wanna be friendly to ourselves and to the fact that you've got limited time. So smaller digits
Yes.
are gonna get the point across just as easily without all the extra time counting. So that would be a good next step of your lesson, I think, to present them with one of these. And again, you've got all this on your ALD. You know there's not a ton, but each one of these will take a while. None of these should be super quick and fly through it. So you could present them with an option from one of the questions and have them build it and then talk about how we can create this and put it into standard form. Make sense?
I also feel like it reinforces, I like the lines, I feel like it reinforces the place values also.
Yeah. It's
Like every
basically,
ones, tens,
Yeah.
hundreds, thousands,
Yeah.
tens,
And
tens,
that's
hundreds,
what-
thousands.
I know my son does, he'll do his, he's only doing a second grade, so they're not going to 1,000, but he'll have basically his place value chart in his head, but if you've got, whether it's this, sometimes that can be confusing and look like a 1, so I just do the lines underneath. Whatever works for you in your class. But just know that we're taking a number, we're decomposing it, but we're also having to give them decomposed numbers and compose it. So we need them to be able to do both for this assessment. Any questions or concerns on what the goal is for Thursday's lesson? So let's talk about how we're gonna go about executing it. Tomorrow, what were we recommending with?
To start with like the 2-digit and 3-digit.
And so I think we talked about small groups also.
Yep.
Model.
Okay, so we were saying that since we're coming on Thursday, and our goal is to see, what number did we?
Day 5.
Yep, it's day 5.
2048.
This is the number that we'd like to see you have your students decompose. Remember, they're gonna have to bundle the hundreds. So they're gonna use that decomposition chart and they're gonna decompose 2048 in their small groups. And then you're gonna fill out the chart just kind of like we did in the beginning, where we had the chart and, all ones, all tens and ones and things like that. Good? So to get them to this point, was it probably more helpful to start with a 2-digit for you all? Imagine how helpful that will be for your kids. So tomorrow, at some point, we're gonna ask that you fit in the 2 and probably 3-digit to get them comfortable with the building, with the decomposing and different forms of numbers. And then we'll come in on Thursday to take a look at this using, I don't know which one it is even. Using this one. Sorry. Again, this is in the IG.
So the kids are gonna need this.
So today you wanted us to work on like tens and ones, tomorrow 100 tens and ones, and Thursday.
That would
1,000
work.
tens and
If
ones.
you feel comfortable
However you
jumping
wanna
into
break
it
it down.
today.
Or you could do tomorrow, you could do tens, I mean, it didn't take long to do tens. The tens really is just getting them familiar with it. The hundreds makes them think a little bit more. Thursday though, we're coming at, what time did you give me?
12.